Hi, my name is Bryn Adams, and I did my author discussion project on David Walker. David Walker was born in 1796 or 1797, although some sources say 1785, in Wilmington, North Carolina. Through his lifetime witnessing slavery and racism, he wrote a pamphlet in 1829 called Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World. This pamphlet encouraged African Americans to fight for freedom and equality. Walker was decried for inciting violence, but also changed the abolition movement. Walker's father was a slave, but his mother was a free black woman. Following the state's law, he inherited his mother's liberated status. However, being free did not keep him from the degradations of slavery. Accomplishments. In Boston, Walker became involved in the Massachusetts General Colored Association, which was an organization opposed to slavery and racism. He also served as a Boston agent for the Freedom's Journal, the first African American-led newspaper. This was his first writing outlet to actively speak out against discrimination. In September of 1829, he published his appeal called An Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World. It targeted enslaved men and women of the South. In his appeal, he calls out to the church and white people for allowing slavery to continue even though it is morally wrong. In order for this pamphlet to get to southern ports, he relied on sailors and ship's officers. Walker's main objective in publishing the appeal was to bring to light the fact that African Americans, enslaved and free, faced inhumane justices. He wanted to highlight that African Americans were humans and deserved to be treated equally. One of his most famous lines was, "We colored people of the United States are the most wretched, degraded, and abject set of beings that ever lived since the world began." Effects of the appeal. The appeal made a great impression on the southern states. It gave the slaves hope, and they thought it was very inspiring. The whites in the South offered a $3,000 reward for Walker's head and $10,000 to anyone who could bring him to the South alive. The appeal had different effects on free white Americans. People were worried for Walker's safety and told him to move to Canada. Walker said, quote unquote, "I may be doomed to the stake in the fire or the scaffold tree, but it is not in me to falter if I can promote the work of emancipation." Themes relating to the appeal are social, political, and economic inequalities based on racial differences, abolition of slavery, and armed resistance to oppression. He is most known for the publication of his appeal. He called slavery out on its injustices and called for slaves to claim their deserved equal rights. The difference between his work and other abolitionist publications at the time was he was vigilant in his claims. Some suggest that he was murdered by poison, and others suggest that he died from tuberculosis, the same disease that killed his daughter. He made history by his actions, and his writings are described as a brief and terrifying moment, the most notorious document in America.